Welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of the Let Nothing Move You podcast. Your host, Christian Ashley, as we continue on through the book of Joshua, today finishing up the book of Joshua with chapters 23 and 24. And you know what? I promised you 2 guests last time. And as my co-host here for the day is very well acquainted with, you should never promise anyone anything because life gets in the way. So there will be no Joshua Noel here today. He's died. I killed him. Which will make it really awkward when he has to edit this later on. But no, actually, he's having a bad day as far as health. So just send your prayers out his way. Your prayers, of course, can work back in the past, in the future, and all over the place, depending on how you look at that. But I am joined today by, my favorite Midwesterner, outside of my brother and niece, who kind of technically are now Midwesterners. But of course, Brandon Knight, how's it going, man?
Hey, yes. If you want the textbook example of don't promise things you don't have recorded yet, go listen to, I don't know, the entirety of my seminary life. That's just a mistake I've made for the past 5 years now until this point. But it's nice to be somebody's favorite Midwesterner. I'd like to think that I'm everybody's favorite Midwesterner, but that's a stiff competition, though, because I've met your brother and your niece. We actually cross paths, you and I, yes, and your family. One time last year, and yeah, that's a stiff competition. They're good folks.
Well, I may be going up in May again, so we may have another opportunity to hang out. We shall see. Okay. And speaking of those knuckleheads, my dad's actually up there with them right now, and they just sent a text to the family group chat of them hanging out together watching TV because she's potty training right now, and as a reward, she got to pick anything in the world to watch, and she picked the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. And wow, if that's not my girl, I don't know what else is a sign.
Love that. Yeah, that's good. That's like when Cooper picks, he has developed a taste for the various, really all of them. I don't think he even necessarily has a favorite. Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons. We haven't done Sonic X because that one is probably the most narrative driven, but the early 90s one, Sonic Underground, Sonic Boom from the 2010s. That'll be something he pulls out every once in a while. We're struggling on the potty training process, so maybe I'll keep that trick in mind, see if that works.
Yeah, speaking of Producer Cooper, if you happen to hear an adorable voice in the background, that is him. So it's like a little Easter egg for every podcast that Brandon does. It's like, when does Cooper show up?
Yeah, really. Even when he's asleep sometimes. He still somehow manages to work his way in. But we'll see. He's got Paw Patrol on right now. So we'll see how long that holds his attention. We're doing 2 chapters, but one of these looks a little short. These are both pretty short, I think. So we'll see how it goes.
Without Joshua here, it should be a lot faster. But,
oh my gosh, that was going to be like a 3-hour-long episode with all 3 of us on. Throw Joe Day in here and the episode would not end.
Oh, absolutely not. All right. So, Brandon, you ready to go into this one?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. We're going to start in chapter 23, verses 1 through 13. A long time afterward, when the Lord had given rest to Israel from all their surrounding enemies, and Joshua was old and well advanced in years, Joshua summoned all Israel, its elders and heads, its judges and officers, and said to them, I am now old and well advanced in years, and you have seen all that the Lord your God has done to all these nations for your sake. For it is the Lord your God who has fought for you. Behold, I have allotted to you as an inheritance for your tribes those nations that remain, along with all the nations that I have already cut off, from the Jordan to the great sea in the west. The Lord your God will push them back before you and drive them out of your sight, and you shall possess their land, just as the Lord your God promised you. Therefore be very strong to keep and to do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, turning aside from it neither to the right hand nor to the left, that you may not mix with these nations remaining among you, or make mention of the name of their gods, or swear by them, or serve them, or bow down to them. But you shall cling to the Lord your God, just as you have done to this day. For the Lord has driven out before you great and strong nations, and as for you, no man has been able to stand before you to this day. One man of you puts to flight 1,000, since it is the Lord your God who fights for you, just as he promised you. Be very careful, therefore, to love the Lord your God. For if you turn back and cling to the remnant of these nations remaining among you, and make marriages with them so that you associate with them and they with you, know for certain that the Lord your God will no longer drive out these nations before you, but they shall be a snare and a trap before you, a whip on your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from off this good ground that the Lord your God has given you. Brandon, take it away.
I am a big fan of when the Bible is funny. And look, that is a funny line. Let's go back. It's all the way back to the beginning. Joshua summoned all Israel, its elders, and oh wait, gotta go back. Okay, so in verse 1, it goes all the way back to verse 1. Surrounding enemies, and Joshua was old and well advanced in years. And then Joshua gets all these people together, and he says, "I am now old and well advanced in years." Like that's just good comedy 101 there. I mean, it's how they wrote Chronicles, not the two books, but how they wrote Chronicles and narratives and Gospels, isn't necessarily like how we write our nonfiction books. So yeah, there's going to be points where it's like oddly stiff, but I just right off the bat, I thought that was pretty good of just like, Joshua's old and well advanced in years. Hey guys, I'm old and well advanced in years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because this is taking place over a time skip. I mean, we're not exactly sure, like numbers wise, because they didn't really focus on it. But Joshua was already 80, I think, when they came into the land, and now, however much time has passed, we're going to learn that he's 110, if I remember correctly, when he dies. So that's 30 some years of conquest. I'd be kind of over it too. It's like, guys, look at this. I'm old and advanced in years. You know what you're supposed to be doing. That's kind of the thesis statement of these last two chapters. I've done what I was supposed to do. You better do the same. So let me tell you why. Oh, because I lived as long as I did because God was behind me. So why don't you guys learn some lessons from that, please?
Yeah, and it's crazy to think how at the age of 80 he's starting the conquest or thereabouts.
Yeah,
110 by way of Bible ages, kind of young, kind of young. I mean, we're pretty far removed at this point from Genesis, where if you have a more literal approach to the early chapters of Genesis, people are living hundreds of years, right? 110 compared to that is a lot of years still from a 2026 standpoint, but pretty young. But to be starting all of the conquest, because Joshua is famous, thanks VeggieTales, for Josh and the Big Wall, for the Battle of Jericho, which may not have been as bloody and violent as some of the other battles or a lot of the battles that are to come in the Book of Judges, but like the guy still saw a lot of warfare. He's also wandering the wilderness, wandering the desert for 40 something years. Like this is, I will save more of these thoughts for when we get to actual chapter 24. I have a whole sermon on basically the bulk of 24, the most well-known part, especially. And
yes,
I think we miss the tone of Joshua, like the guy Joshua, in these last two chapters. I've wanted to do a whole sermon series before on passages of the Bible that we rip out of context to put on decorative wall art at Hobby Lobby, because a lot of times those are ripped so far out of context that we are absolutely missing the point. That kind of comes up here, particularly in chapter 24. We'll get to it.
yes,
But it's in a completely different way. And it's a lot of the way that Joshua is communicating that I think we miss kind of the tone of what's going on here. But yeah, Joshua's getting ready to die. That's the last two chapters of this book, is Joshua's getting ready to die. And sports metaphors, it's kind of like volleyball. He's setting them up. He's getting things ready. So that way Israel has not necessarily a smooth leadership transition, which is, what we would want this to be in modern evangelical Christianity. But instead, it's more so, okay, as you said, our success through the land of Canaan has been because I have been faithfully following the Lord. I'm setting you up so that can continue, because there's still land to be taken in Canaan at this.
Well, actually, that's something I've been wrestling with this entire series, is the fact that there is no successor after him, and we don't get like an explicit reason for why, other than like a vague kind of like all trust God. I want to get your take on it. Like, do you think that he just didn't do what Moses did for him, in setting up someone else, or do you think that it wasn't his mind, or God probably told him off screen not to? Like, I want to get your thoughts on the issue.
Yeah, it is a weird one, because that is like really clearly established prior. Like Moses is going to
Yes.
die and we're getting Joshua ready to take over. Caleb kind of playing like backup, I guess you could think.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the secondary, but it's Joshua. It's clearly Joshua. And then you are going to go into the weirdest time period in Israel's history in a way
Mhm.
with the judges, where it's like everybody and anybody is in charge at this point. And but then there's so many different characters. It's not just for like 6 books now, we have been dealing with Moses is in charge. Now Joshua is in charge. Then you get to Judges and it's like 18 different main characters. And it all resets when you get back to First Samuel. You're back on here's Samuel, here's Saul, here's David. And it's just, I don't know. At the end of the day, all of that is to say is that I don't know why we don't have a very clear cut, because it seems like that would be something that God would want, something that Joshua would want. It's kind of this like he's setting them up to become this like tribe led nation where the tribes are all going to take care of themselves. And because that's essentially how Judges fall. But that's never
Yes.
ever like explicitly stated. But that just
Yes.
is the way it goes. So maybe that's an off screen conversation that we didn't get recorded for some strange reason.
I come very near to you because my ultimate answer is I don't know, because it seems very out of character for him not to have someone succeed him, given how he was trained. And you would think, well, let me pass it forward. But then there had to have been some conversation between him and God, I believe, off screen. For said, no, I don't want there to be anyone. The whole point of this is they're supposed to rely on me, but they have to support all the Levites because, by the way, when we were putting all those cities together, I put the Levites there specifically so that they could do their job to bring the people closer to me, so that they would worship me well. So I think that's the point, is that it's supposed to be just God as your primary leader, and it shouldn't have been a king, and that's why he gets very angry at them when they do demand one later on. Because the goal is, you look at me and you look at my priests, who, if they're doing their jobs well, which we'll see throughout Israelite history isn't always the case, but if they're doing their jobs well, you shouldn't need a central leader. You should have the law to fall back on and go, oh, this is how I'm supposed to live my life. This is how I'm supposed to conduct business here. But without being explicitly told that, we have to guess.
Yeah, and like you just said, I think just how the pieces fall into place, that assumption may be the best way to go, rather than there was no plan, so they all shrugged and said, okay, I guess we're all autonomous, built within one united nation, like this Southern Baptist Convention, ironically. They didn't do that on purpose.
No.
But when you do get to eventually Israel demanding a king from Samuel, they're like, okay, well, we'll go with Saul. Like, clearly that's not what God was hoping this would turn into. And some kind of Levite led, the tribes are in charge of themselves, and the Levites are like the check and balance of following the law. Something was like that was supposed to occur, and it didn't. And I guess in a way, the more I think about it now, we see this mirrored a little bit with Jesus in the form of discipleship. A lot of how, if not the primary way that we are supposed to be growing in our relationship with Jesus, in community with others, is in a discipleship environment where you may have a person or people who are kind of like spiritual leaders, but everyone is kind of like not necessarily in charge of each other, because obviously we're not running things this way, but like everyone is still spiritually equal to each other, while there's still kind of this like head or people in charge who are navigating things. So yeah, but it would have been nice if that was just spelled out in chapter 25 or something,
Well, we unfortunately don't get that. For whatever reason, I need to want it written down. And I almost thought you were going a different way when you started autonomous. I thought you were going to go autonomous collective. And I was going to get angry again that I wasn't invited on the Kung Fu Pizza Party to talk about Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It was very spontaneous.
Which you know what, at that same time, you barely made it to 30 minutes. So I definitely would not have helped in that scenario. So that was the right choice.
I'll keep that in mind if it ever comes back up, because I'm sure Pastor Will is also like, man, he did that one without me. Like, it was very spontaneous to do the Monty Python episode, but it was a lot of fun.
It was great. I enjoyed it a lot. So one thing I do want to point forward to, because it kind of comes up in the next verses too, is what Joshua says to them about reiterating God's promises to Israel, and his promises of what you do when you do things correctly and what you do when you don't do things correctly. Like, look, it's given to you. I promised it to you, but this, once again, is a conditional promise, a conditional covenant. It's based on the idea of if you serve me, these things are yours. And we're going to see, especially in Judges, when they don't do their job, when they don't serve, the promise is destroyed, not because God is weak and wasn't able to deliver on it, but because they were weak and unable to deliver on it. So he's like, look, and he'll even say it in 24, like, I know you people, essentially. Like, I know what you're about. I've lived with you for a very long time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I know what's going to happen, and I'm going to warn you beforehand. So let me tell you, this is who God is. This is what he wants to do. But if you don't do what he said to do, things are going to go bad for you.
Yeah, Joshua definitely takes on, and it makes sense, like a parental, grandfatherly like role here as we start to wind his life down, wind the book down of like, look, I've been with you all since Egypt. I was with Moses when the whole golden calf thing happened. Like, I've seen it all with you guys. Like, we need to get on you all need to get on the same page about this. I need to get you all on the same page about this, or there's going to be trouble. You've all seen it before. That's why we just finished wandering the wilderness. Like, yeah.
All right. Anything more before we head to 14 through 16?
No, I think I am ready for the next chunk. Let's do this.
All right. And now I am about to go the way of all the earth. And you know in your hearts and souls, all of you, that not one word has failed of all the good things that the Lord your God promised concerning you. All have come to pass for you, not one of them has failed. But just as all the good things that the Lord your God promised concerning you have been fulfilled for you, so the Lord will bring upon you all the evil things until he has destroyed you from off this good land that the Lord your God has given you. If you transgress the covenant of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, and go and serve other gods, and bow down to them, then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and you shall perish quickly from off the good land that he has given you to you. Your thoughts?
Almost said Moses. Joshua is really working hard. Like, guys, this ain't going to end well if you don't follow the law. Please follow the law. It's not going to go well for you if you do not. And it's interesting that, like, Joshua does bring up here that, God's going to wipe him off the face of the earth. And that doesn't happen in Judges, because the weird thing about Judges, and you get to talk about this starting, I guess, next week, is that Judges isn't necessarily in like a chronological order as much as it is like all happening basically at the same time, and like it's pockets of Israel that's being taken captive and then being released by different judges. But the whole we're going to be wiped off the face of the earth, I don't know, it's almost like Adam and Eve here when they fell, of like, it's centuries down the road before eventually Israel and the nation of Judah are taken captive. And even at that, they still maintain some of their cultural identity all the way through the Roman Empire to the birth of Jesus, when we're going to start moving into the new covenant stuff. So, and that's all to say, I don't think Joshua's like bluffing or trying to like scare them. Oh, he might be actually trying to scare them straight a little bit, if I'm honest, now that I think about it for a second. But it is one of those things that we do see in scripture of like, it's not going to necessarily be immediate ramifications. There may be Oh, let me back that up a bit. There may be immediate ramifications, but not the ending,
Like
the
destruction
end,
of everything you know.
yeah. Like the final cutoff kind of destruction. So yeah, it's intense, and in a way, it's going to continue to get intense as we get into the chapter.
Yeah, and that's just one of those good things about God is that that's exactly how he handles it from here on out. Because all the way back in the Pentateuch, when the people are sinning, and God's like, "All right, I'm going to wipe them all out, Moses. I'm going to start over from you." And it's like, please, God, please don't do that. And I don't want your name to be destroyed in the other nations. They brought them out into the wilderness just to kill them all off. In the same way, that's exactly how he preserves. If you look through the history books of the Bible, which are my favorite parts, uh, because I love history, I love learning stuff like that and seeing how cultures develop and all the things that happen in warfare and the like. You see a God who's so very patient. Even when he punishes them multiple times over, he doesn't give the full extent of it. Even when he takes them out of the land, he doesn't give the full extent of it, because the full extent would be in a complete washing away, starting over with someone else. Someone else like Abraham who didn't deserve it, and yet God chose him anyways. Like he chose Israel. They didn't deserve one bit of it, and yet he's preserved them even when he's punishing it, even when he's taking away from them, because honestly, they bring it on themselves. But much like, here's your standard switch, and that's just like we are, guys, because that's exactly what we are. How many times have we been restored and stuff taken away from us over and over again because we had this way or that way, knowing we're not supposed to do that?
Yeah, and also this is where covenants do get a little tricky. So I do fall more as a covenant theologian rather than a dispensationalist. I don't know how that lands with the rest of the audience, but basically, yes, Israel does have to be faithful to the law. That is part of the covenant, the law of Moses, the covenant between God and Israel at this point. But at this point, the Abrahamic covenant is still in play here because they don't have the land. They have a good chunk of it, and they're not necessarily, they're a nation and God is being glorified through them, but there's still like further development that the nation of Israel needs to go through. And that covenant, though the Mosaic one, is very much based off of follow the law, be blessed, don't follow the law, follow other gods, and be cursed. The Abrahamic covenant rides solely on God. Like that is all up to God to fulfill at that point. And so, and I want to emphasize the at that point part, because there's stuff going on in the current world. That's the word.
Yes.
Or in the current world that some people are going to say is justified based off of the Abrahamic covenant. I would say no, seek the new covenant at that point, and it's different. But the point is that God is going to have to remain faithful to Abraham at this point somehow, while also still holding up his end of the Mosaic covenant if Israel starts slipping off, which does explain how you get judge after judge after judge in the book of Judges to try and hold this all together.
When it comes to the dispensationalist thing, like I'm a kind of a yes and in that, the church is Israel now to an extent, but I don't think God has given up on his people, Israel. So whatever the heck that proper terminology is, like I know they exist for a reason. I can come off as like anti-establishment, as it were, when it comes to those things, because I don't remember the names of them more than anything else. So I see a God throughout history who has preserved those same people. That then does not justify everything that is done by that people group, by that nation, just as much as the same thing applies to the church. Just because the church does something doesn't automatically mean God's totally 100%, 100% behind it, because that's illogical, because look at the world, look how many different denominations there are just within Christianity alone. And you can't say, yeah, God's been behind every single one of those things, because once again, illogical. So yeah, I don't want to take this towards the Israeli-Palestine conflict too much right here and now, even though kind of part of it is here. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
I can pivot you out with a Monty Python reference, because I do talk about how the holy hand grenade is one of the coolest little pieces of set design, prop stuff, but also stop putting God in all your wars. That's an example of the church doing something that's like, yeah, we shouldn't have been doing that. That would be an example of like, stop using God to justify throwing a bomb at a rabid rabbit. Don't do that. Poor creature. Anyway, there you go. Nobody knew they were signing up for a Monty Python related episode.
The bloody killer. All right. Moving on from that. Nice segue. Let's go through 24 verses 1 through 13. Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem and summoned the elders, the heads, the judges, and the officers of Israel. And they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, long ago your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, Terah, the father of Abraham of Nahor, and they served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond the river and led him through all the land of Canaan and made his offspring many. I gave him Isaac. And to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. And I gave Esau the hill country of Seir to possess, but Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with what I did in the midst of it, and afterward I brought you out. Then I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and you came to the sea. And the Egyptians pursued your fathers with chariots and horsemen to the Red Sea. And when they cried to the Lord, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians and made the sea come upon them and cover them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and you lived in the wilderness a long time. Then I brought you to the land of the Amorites who lived on the other side of the Jordan. They fought with you, and I gave them into your hand, and you took possession of their land, and I destroyed them before you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose and fought against Israel, and he sent and invited Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I would not listen to Balaam. Instead, he blessed you. Indeed, he blessed you. So I delivered you out of his hand. And you went over to Jordan and came to Jericho, and the leaders of Jericho fought against you, and also the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And I gave them into your hand. And I sent the hornet before you, which drove them out before you. The 2 kings of the Amorites, it was not by your sword or by your bow. I gave you a land in which you had not labored, and cities that you had not built, and you dwell in them. You eat the fruit of vineyards and olive orchards that you did not plant.
Cool. I actually really like this. Jokes aside, I really like this. You see this happen a lot in the book of Psalms, of God kind of running down his resume for what he has done for Israel at this point. This is a thing that comes up a lot, like I said, in the book of Psalms, more so used in the book of Psalms as a way to strengthen the singers and the modern readers towards God's faithfulness and God's sovereignty, his strength, the whole bit, all of the usual descriptors that we use here. Here, I get more of a Joshua is, again, we're setting up the people of Israel for Joshua's going bye-bye now, or Joshua is dying. And so let's not forget everything that God has done for us. Going all the way back to the beginning, as we were just talking about with Abraham, like going all the way back to the beginning. Let's not forget what God has done for us. His might, his strength, he is for us over and over and over again, preparing the way to right now where we get to live in cities that we did not build and enjoy, whatever he says, the fruit of the vine or vineyards that we did not plant. Like, God has been good to us. God has been faithful to us. So let's talk about now what we need. Israel.
I kind of can't help but also look forward a bit to Acts 7 with Stephen and him, recounting the history of Israel to the Pharisees and Sadducees and being like, hey, look, you know this, by the way, but I'm going to tell you anyways, because obviously you don't know your history or you haven't learned from it. Like, God has done all these things, all the miraculous works he did, bringing us back to the land or bringing us to the land in the first place. And now when he comes in the form of man and God, like, you've rejected him. But then looking back over here, this is the history he's talking about, where even before then, there was still plenty that had happened before, but it's like, hey, look at everything that God has done. Name one other people group in the world where this has happened time after time after time again. Well, I'll wait, and I'm going to be waiting forever because they don't exist.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Look at what he has done. Like, it could have literally been anyone. He picked one guy on the face of the earth. He could have picked someone in the Americas. He could have picked someone, an Aborigine in Australia. It doesn't matter. What matters is God chose. And in light of that, we have a huge responsibility behind us. That whole great power and responsibility thing. I'll go all Spider-Man here.
Not surprised.
And very shocking that I choose to use Spider-Man as a reference point here. In that, look, because of everything he's done before, don't you think he's going to continue doing that? So that's why we keep the law, not just to get the good things, not just to get the perks, but because we want to serve the God who preserved his people despite, oh, by the way, remember all the stupid things we did at that same time he was preserving us, and yet let us remain a nation.
It's here, I'll throw another great pop culture reference in here. Whenever this kind of thing happens, where it's like, okay, we're going to run down God's resume for Israel, it's very much the Indiana Jones. Haven't you ever been to Sunday school? Like, just kind of this, like, this is basics. Okay, we're not necessarily doing deep cuts here. We're doing information, like you said with Stephen with the Pharisees. This is stuff that y'all know. I mean, at this point with Joshua, maybe not as far, obviously not as far back as Abraham, but obviously the more recent conquest of Canaan, yeah, they lived through all of that. So you're being reminded of something that happened a month ago, right? Or whatever. There's a time jump, like you said, but you get the
within
idea
living memory.
Yeah, within living memory. So no, and you're right. This isn't so much okay, God did this for us, so now we got to do the thing for him, so we get on this good side. As much as it is, look at God's love and faithfulness towards us. Let us express our love and faithfulness towards him through the keeping of the law. This is the part that I don't know what your experience was in youth group, but I was in that youth group circle where anything related to the law was treated as bad. Anything related to even like quoting passages from the Pentateuch to support something. There was a certain youth group in the area that a lot of my friends went to that if we're talking about whatever and somebody quotes something from the Pentateuch, I heard these guys from this youth group go, well, that's from the law. So that's, basically pick another Bible verse to support your position. Because that's how demonized the law has gotten within certain circles of evangelicalism, at least within back in the 2010s. Again, I don't know what your youth group experience was like, but that was a lot of what mine was like. And the law is a burden. Moses talks about that. Not Moses. Run it back. Paul talks about that in the book of Romans. I don't know how I got Moses out of that. Like, the law is a burden, and the law is there to reveal that Israel can't keep the law. But it's not just like this, because this was the big issue with the prophets. It's not just this like check the box, check the box, check the box, as it is, here's the way God is calling a specific nation at a specific time period to show their love and faithfulness to him.
I think we've talked about this before, my youth group experience on another show. And I think you said something similar to that. Yeah, mine was way better. I'm sorry you had to go through that. My youth pastor took everything very seriously when it came to connecting things from old to new. I mean, typically we focus more on New Testament because, that's what's going to be, getting directly to Jesus and everything. Sure. But like if he brought up a verse from the Old Testament, it wasn't like, hey, this is the dumb things they used to think. It was like, no, this ties them together. And I still love that man to this day. He's actually in Ukraine right now, helping with the ministry for people there. Or he may be back in the States. Like he kind of goes back and forth, obviously in a very perilous situation.
Yes.
To minister to people who directly need help. So he and I have not always agreed on things theologically, but at the end of the day, He's always been someone I look up to. Is like, yes, okay, I want to be like that guy. But in regards to this, this is why you have to study your Old Testament.
Yes.
Because it builds, the New Testament builds off of the Old. It's not some static thing that you can reject everything else that came before it. Yeah, we can get the Apocrypha and all that mess. That's its own separate thing. But like the actual Old Testament, like Jesus keeps referring back to it because it matters to him. Yes. Because he helped write it. There's a reason he's called the Word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. listeners at home, if any of you have a I Survived youth group podcast, because those do exist, I'm sure that literally has to be a title of a youth group podcast. I Survived youth group. Let me know, because I have thoughts from my time in youth group. It's nowhere near as traumatic as other people's youth group experience, or as traumatic as my 20s trying to get into vocational ministry. But I have thoughts and I have stories. So if you have a I Survived youth group podcast and you need a guest, let me know. I can wow your audience with weird takes, like quote a different Bible verse. That's from the law. Try again. Because that was, like I said, that was a whole thing. I'm glad you had a better experience.
Yeah, not to like flex on you or anything. I'm sure as well. Out of all 10 listeners that I have, maybe one of them has their own I Survived youth group podcast.
Right.
Which, by the way, sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I should have said this at the beginning. I joke about having 10 listeners. That's wrong.
Oh, okay.
I just looked through all the analytics the other day, and for reasons beyond my understanding, my voice has been heard in over 50 countries with just this podcast alone. We're still very modest in size compared to a lot of others, but like the fact that other people with other languages in other nations willingly listen to me multiple times over astounds me to this day. And I'm sure you felt that too.
Yes. I also helped launch, we'll plug Anna's out for a second. I also helped launch Page and Pixel, which is a show that I cannot wait to hear Christian Ashley's take on, but I helped launch it. And as I was showing them the platform and the analytics, that was a jaw drop moment for them the first time they saw, like, there's people in Ireland listening to this. It is very like, why are people around the world listening to me talk about kung fu movies or working my way through the Bible? You're choosing to spend, what are we on, 30, 40 minutes now to us talk about us. Thank you for listening. You have other things to do, and you're choosing to do this or listen to this while you're doing that thing. Who knows? But yeah, it is interesting. It is very like, wow, that's cool.
And one thing that does really blow my mind too is like, assuming no VPNs, some of those nations are not very charitable to Christianity. And the fact that you're out there listening to this right now, and maybe this is the only way you can, maybe you have me in your earphones, get headphones, just because if it was out loud, people would be doing something to you. Thank you for all that you do for continuing the church faithfully in those regions. Like, it does mean a lot to me that you guys are doing the work there.
Yeah, agreed. That's not, every space is not safe. I don't know how else to put that. Like, not every space is safe, whether it's because of the views on Christianity or just because people are dropping bombs on you and you're in a war space right now. Like, to be, even if you're just using our shows, any of the Anna Zhao shows, to help you fall asleep at night, like, I'm glad my voice can do that for you.
Put that on my resume. Successfully made people fall asleep.
Exactly.
Some my voice. Yeah. So I know we got on a rabbit trail. Not nearly as bad as when Joe hasn't been on this show yet. I keep forgetting to invite him on. But when he and I record together, it's like we will chase 14 different trails and like, oh, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, Mothman. And moving on.
Right. Oh, my gosh. The only other thing I was going to say, going back to the youth group bit for a second, is it's not a flex that you did not experience that, Christian. If anything, I'm happy if I am the only person who had to experience that. Please let me know that is just a weird Northwest Indiana thing and not a universal problem within the church. Going back to Joshua now.
It needs to be said, because there's a lot of people out there whose conversion story, coming to faith moment is, I grew up in the church. I had a great family. I got baptized. I got saved and baptized when I was 6 or 7. Oh, God dang it. I did it to myself. And you know what? There's that
I'll spare you. I work with children. I'll spare you.
You feel that kind of inner cringe of like, oh no, my story isn't that great because it's so simple and it's so easy. It's like, well, is it? I mean, you still had to make the decisions. I mean, you still had to deal with people that always weren't working well with you together. I'm sure every person at church wasn't always working towards unity and loving each other really well, right? Like, it's like your story doesn't have to be, I grew up in an abused household and I took drugs from when I was 3 years old, alcohol when I was 4, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to downplay anyone's experience, but like, there's that wrong desire in our hearts. But I wish my story was better. And it's like, no. Sometimes God gives good things. You should be very grateful for them. That doesn't mean He doesn't love the people who went through those bad things. It just means like for you, He protected you in a different way.
Yeah, that's I think that's part of the blessing and the curse in a way of another blessing and curse, I guess, of American Christianity, because it is easy to fall into that headspace of like, my testimony isn't as good as so and so's, especially when you have things like traveling evangelistic things, where a lot of the stories that you hear from these like traveling evangelists, or you're from the South, the Power Team. Are you familiar with the Power Team?
Yeah.
The Christian Strong guys. Okay, yeah. Some of their testimonies is basically like, I did all of the drugs and now Jesus, and then Jesus saved me, So like, when you're hearing those kinds of testimonies over and over and over again, and you have a very normal conversion experience, like, that's okay. Don't panic. It's fine. And
Working as intended.
honestly, for your body, it's good that you didn't do all of the drugs before coming to Jesus. Like, that's still a good thing either way.
All right. Well, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's move on to 14 through 18. And for us, we're doing remarkably well with time. Not to jinx us or anything, but yeah. 14. Now, therefore, fear the Lord and serve Him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Then the people answered, far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For it is the Lord our God who brought us and our fathers up from the land of Egypt out of the house of slavery, and who did these great signs in our sight, and preserved us all in the way that we went, and among all the peoples through whom we passed. And the Lord drove out from before us all the peoples, the Amorites, who lived in the land. Therefore we will also serve the Lord, for He is our God.
Okay, so I will set up now the sermon part. I kind of talked about this. So when we talk about, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, that is a popular verse that does get put on decorative wall art. But as opposed to other verses that get ripped out of context to be put on decorative wall art, like be still and know I am God, I'm actually literally in the process. Jeremiah 29:11. I'm actually literally in the process of writing a sermon on Psalm 46, which is where be still and know I am God comes up, because I referenced how that verse gets pulled out of context a lot. And somebody in the church I was preaching at, that I'm going to be back at this Sunday, looked over, and on the wall was a thing that had Psalm 46:10a on it. And I looked at it and go, well, I guess I know what I'm preaching next time I show up. The big difference, though, between Jeremiah 29:11, Romans 6, whatever, I can't think of the I'm terrible with references. God intended for good verse, any of these, as opposed to, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. When that is put up on a piece of decorative wall art of a piece of reused wood, within context, it still basically gets the point across. That the point is, we're going to continue to follow the Lord. The end. That's basically the gist that we have here. That is the whole point of these two chapters. You can officially stop listening. That is the point that we're trying to get to. The thing that is different here is tone. So when you see those decorative wall art, especially for this one of as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It's very pretty, right? Because you want pretty decorations. This one, because it talks about house, you often see it in like living room spaces or even the kitchen. I've seen ones before that are very like kitchen-y. It's got like measuring cups on it or something, right? And this is where it is important to remember who is talking at the moment, because it's not Martha Stewart. That's usually like how we portray it in art, of like, it's kind of this like soft, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Look, I'm not a big fan of over masculinizing the Bible. That is not my gig usually. But this is one of those instances where it's important to remember that the guy talking right now isn't Martha Stewart, but probably something closer to Clint Eastwood. Like, Joshua is an old man, sun-baked at this point from wandering in the wilderness for so long, has seen God work in miraculous ways, has seen Israel fail in miraculous ways, and has been through war several times over. He's been through battles several times over. This is not necessarily like a soft, hey, choose this day for whom you will serve. Whereas for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. As much as it is like this, in my mind, like a growling old man saying, we're going to serve the Lord. That's what my house is up to. It's less soft colors and pretty font and more barbed wire, which, again, I'm not normally this kind of a guy. This has been a big part of my life that I've had to like rip out and get rid of, the over masculinizing of the Bible. But in this specific instance, no, I think it's important to remember, like, who is saying this? This isn't like a soft, gentle reminder as much as it is like a grizzled old man who has seen. You got old man Joshua, yeah, old man Logan, yeah, old man Joshua here, of a guy who has seen it all, been through a lot, and is wanting the best for his people. And so he's going to sit them down and say, we're serving the Lord. The end. There you go. That is the shortest way I can take that.
Mic drop. Yeah, absolutely. Because that's exactly what's going on here. This isn't someone who's like, hey, you guys, if you have nothing else better to do than just listen to me, I guess I'll throw this in there. But like, no, this is someone who's like, look, in light of everything else I've said, including the parts of this verse that don't get put on those little placards or signs or anything in your house, look at this. The people around you don't serve God. You're still having to conquer them. You're going to be tempted to go that way. Remember, Abraham didn't start off as a believer in God either. You know, when you were in Egypt, some of you went away to serve other gods. Hey, don't be that person. I will be the example here. Me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Therefore, I want you to look at me, not as like, look at me, but like, look at what he is doing spiritually to go, I should emulate that. Let me be like that, so that I serve my God well. Once again, not to make myself look good, but to actually do what I'm supposed to be doing and loving other people well.
And not to get too far ahead, but it is worth pointing out in the very next verse where Christian stopped reading. In the very next verse, so Joshua's having his big moment. Me and my house, we will serve the Lord. The people of Israel collectively respond all in unison at the same time, because again, sometimes when you just think about the Bible, it's funny. Oh yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we're going to serve the Lord. Like, and that's what you want to hear, right? That's what you want to hear. But in that very next verse, sorry to work ahead a little bit, Christian, Joshua says, no, you won't. Like, it's again, just like grumpy old man mic drop here of, no, you won't. You're going to fail. You do not have the ability to follow God because he is holy.
I mean, we can bring it up here because it kind of gets into what they're going to be saying in a second when we get to those verses of like, look, your words are going to be brought against you. Everything you say. This is why, by the way, those laws about vows exist. Those laws about oaths exist, because I want you to think correctly. I want your right mind to be, when you say something, you mean it. Mm-hmm. And that's why Jesus will later say, look, that existed for a reason then, but now just let your words be your words. You know, do what you say you're going to do. Don't be stupid. Because when you say something like this and you bring up, it's your time for trial, and they've got video evidence of you saying, I've never murdered that person. And they've also got video evidence of you murdering that person, as it were, or whatever sin we can throw in there. Well, one's contradicting the other here. Like, what's going on? oh, we're going to use that as a witness against you because you said one thing, then you went and did another. So who's to blame here? Is it God? Absolutely not. He's giving you every chance in the world to get things right. So think before you speak.
Also, just the irony of, look, guys, you got to keep your oath here. You're not able to, but like it's going to be held against you. And here it is on my phone all these years later. The evidence is still here in front of us, and then some after this book ends of, yeah, it is hard, nearly impossible. It is impossible to follow a holy God because holiness very literally means distinct, different. Like, so yeah. But yeah, that is my big rant. This is the whole reason why I wanted to make sure I did not have a migraine and was able to be on this episode, is because I just think it's something that often gets overlooked in the name of Hobby Lobby decorative wall art of like good. I'm glad you're reminding yourself of that. Also, I'm glad you're reminding yourself of that, but you also are kind of like Israel and you're not going to do that all of the time. So, you know, but it's also like, it's just one of those things that I feel oddly passionate about trying to recorrect the narrative of how we use scripture at different places within the American Christian experience.
Yeah, it's the difference between using a verse because it makes me feel good versus, using a verse because it makes me feel good and I know the context behind it. Like these things are supposed to make you feel good. God loves you. He's looking out for you. But also remember why these things are being said. They're not being said just to be like, oh, okay, everything's going to be okay just because I think that way. Positive thinking, like that's antithetical to scripture. It's like, no, like me and my house, we will serve the Lord, which means I am taking responsibility to back this up with my life, my actions, and my family, or even if you're living by yourself, just yourself. So you're taking a weight on your shoulders. That's your cross to bear after this point in time. So you better bear it well.
And chances are, if there is some kind of verse that you really like, we ran down a bunch of the popular ones, and you're looking at it and you're like, doggone it, now I have to check the context. And you're going to realize that it doesn't fit. I can almost guarantee there is another passage that will get it to you. And that's part of the problem, is that we want these in sound bites. We want these in little blocks that we can hang on our walls, or put in our Instagram bios or whatever. And that's not necessarily how the Bible works, because that's not how it was written. Trust me, just try to spend some time, Christian knows that, with Paul in the Greek. You think he likes run-on sentences in English. The guy doesn't know what punctuation is, period. Or the scribe dude who was writing it down for him just doesn't know how to use any form of punctuation. That's just not how the Bible isn't written to be soundbite. So you might need a verse about comfort, need a verse about, what did you just say? God loves you and he's for you, or something. Yeah. You could find something, the Psalm 46:10, be still and know I am God. We use that a lot for comfort. That's not what that verse is about, folks. But if you need something, Psalm 23 is also right there. There are other whole chapters, there's whole stories of Jesus being for his people. And maybe we just need to, I don't know, saturate our minds more with the entire thing rather than just the cute little sound bit that actually has nothing to do with what you
need. You know why we don't, for the most part? Because that requires work. That requires me to actually get into this book that I say I care about, and actually study what it says. And I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad necessarily. I mean to call people out, don't get me wrong, because I've been very guilty of this before. I want to get to the parts that I like. There was some sections of my life I just read through the history stuff because I love history, and I wouldn't focus on, okay, by the way, you also need to love your neighbor. By the way, this is why you shouldn't be saying the things you're saying because they're hurtful to other people, or this is why you shouldn't be prideful. If you don't read this book in the context it was first delivered in, but also the context that's intended afterward, you're going to be missing out on pretty much everything. So this is your call. This is your pastor's calling you out. Read your Bible.
Christian doesn't mean to make you feel guilty. But if you were an athlete with Philippians 4:13 somewhere in your Instagram bio or hanging up in your locker, I do mean to make you feel guilty. Please get rid of that. That's not what that means. Stop using Christian athletes need to stop using Philippians 4:13 for catching a ball. That's not what that means. Shall we get back to Joshua now?
Yes. I think we should go ahead to 19 through 28.
Okay.
Because I want to respect your time. But Joshua said to the people, "You are not able to serve the Lord." I love this so much. "For he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions or your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, then he will turn and do you harm and consume you after having done you good." And the people said to Joshua, "No, but we will serve the Lord." Some great comedy in the Bible. Then Joshua said to the people, "You are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen the Lord to serve him." And they said, "We are witnesses." He said, "Then put away the foreign gods that are among you and incline your heart to the Lord, the God of Israel." And the people said to Joshua, "The Lord our God we will serve, and his voice we will obey." So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day and put in place statutes and rules for them in Shechem. And Joshua wrote these words in a book of the law of God. And he took a large stone and set it up there on the terebinth that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. And Joshua said to all the people, "Behold, this stone shall be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words of the Lord that he spoke to us. Therefore it shall be a witness against you, lest you deal falsely with your God." So Joshua sent the people away, every man to his inheritance.
So 2 quick things about this. First off, I am a big fan of all these times in the Old Testament specifically. I don't think this comes up in the New Testament, but all these times in the Old Testament when Israel is piling up rocks as a monument, as a reminder. Sometimes it's an altar. You get that like in Genesis a lot. I think Jacob
Even the beginning of this book.
Yeah. Jacob does that a few times. But there's also just times where it's like, all right, that rock over there is a witness against you. Cool. I just think that's really different. And it does come up, I think, especially there at the beginning of Joshua when they crossed the Jordan, of like the purpose is to serve as a witness to the present people as a reminder, but also for generations to come. That it was be just like this presumed thing that some kid is going to look at this. So it's not like a hodgepodge of rocks as much as it is like there's something built there. And the kids are supposed to be like, "Grandpa, what's with the rocks?" And this is, again, a time to run down God's resume of, hey, this is what God did for me. My question, this is why you don't have other podcasters on a podcast. So my question for you, Christian, before you beat me to it, is Joshua tells them to put their foreign gods away from them. Is Joshua just doing what he knows he should do and say, okay, get rid of the foreign gods among you then? Or is he presuming or certain that, okay, well, I know some of you have little idols hidden in your tents or that you worship other gods, get rid of them then? Do you think this is like a Joshua's just covering his bases, or is he like, I know better, I know you are worshiping other gods?
I'm so glad you asked, because I was going to ask you.
That's why you don't have other podcasters on your show, because then they feel the liberty to ask questions. Go on.
Yes. So I think, without being explicitly told one way or the other, that this is Joshua saying, look, I know you yokels. I've been with you for all my life. I know what you're about. I know what you've done before. I know what you're going to do again. So I don't think this is necessarily that there were some foreign idols in their presence at that moment in time, but like, don't even think about it, because as soon as you do, I've seen what happens. Because this is not something that's really brought up to us as much when it comes to like idols and the like. You know, we can talk about Baal, we can talk about Zeus, and, Anubis and Odin and so on and so forth, because they're nothing to us. We don't like worship them. They're fairy tales and mythology to modern age people. So Joshua wouldn't have to say this to us. He'd have to say something completely different. Probably money, status, power, iPhones, if you want to be all millennial about this, millennial preacher about it. So I think this is him saying, look, they're not here right now, but knowing you, they're going to be. And I'm about to croak in a little bit. So I can't do nothing about it except give you these last words. Hey, don't be stupid.
Yeah, I think I would mostly agree with that of like, given the size, which I'm not sure how big Israel is at this point. I know they've just done the whole land allotment section. So I guess there is like not a net zero chance that somebody in the midst of Israel has got us something tucked away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the core here is what we've been seeing throughout these two chapters of like Joshua basically calling Israel over and over and over again of like, no, I know you people. I know what you have done in the past. I know what God has done in the past as well. So how about we just stop playing around? Don't have other gods among you. Because one time I went on a walk, on a hike, Moses, and when we came back, there was a golden calf. So like, don't do that one again, which to Israel's credit, they don't. I don't think we get another golden calf. Not that in my Sunday school knowledge can really remember. Plenty of other gods, though. Did we get one in First Kings?
Two golden calves in the Northern Kingdom.
Okay. So it's going to take a while before we get another golden calf. But
which by their standards is pretty good.
Really, though. Really, though.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I can't help. I've been accused of many years of being an old soul ever since I was 5, probably before then too. And I think that's just a fancy way of saying, oh, you're this young and you're already done with people. Oh, I'm so sorry for you, man. But I can't help but feel Joshua in this. It's like, look, I know you. I have been with you. Let me be your witness against you and what you just said a second ago. You can't maintain this. Now, I'm not trying to beat you down and say you're worthless. I'm not trying to say you'll never amount to anything. It's like, no, I know your character because you've proven it time and time again. Is that you can't do things right, but then maybe something goes wrong. Maybe you have one more complaint than usual. And then suddenly you're overlooking at, oh, Molech's looking nice. Well, sorry, Jimmy, I'm going to have to go sacrifice him. It's like, no, like get your act together right now. Teach your children to do the same. That's why I'm going to be writing these things down, by the way, so that this is preserved as a historical record. So you can look back and read this, those of you who are literate, which would have been most of the priests, if not all, and maybe even more of the people. So you can go, oh, well, if he did that then, well, he's going to do the same now, right? Like he's not going to suddenly abandon this. You know, as long as we're serving him, as long as we're doing things right, even if something goes wrong, it doesn't mean he's gone. Like, let's remember this. And in light of who we are as people, actively fight against that. And that's what we're called to do every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it Martin Luther that's like the heart is the perpetual idol machine? It's either Martin Luther or John Calvin. It's one of the reformers. That's just me flexing my education on. I already get so much.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I got so much flack, and some spaces still do for being educated. But yeah, like it is still like a true statement because as you brought up with modern era, yeah, it doesn't look necessarily like Molech, Cthulhu, or Odin. Though there are Odinists. Paganism is quite popular, but as much as it is like power, status, things like that, are still idols that we have to put away. It just looks different. He's not a good dude, we have come to realize, but Neil Gaiman was onto something with American Gods.
Yeah. That's so disappointing.
Oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I wish Neil Gaiman wasn't a horrible person because he's an amazing writer, but...
Absolutely.
We lost... Would you say you have 10 listeners? We just lost 5 of them. Maybe we should get back on.
Well, if he was here, we'd lose them all. But, you know... No, historically, that hasn't been true because he's been on multiple times and people still come back for more. But yeah, the Gaiman thing is like, oh, man, you're such a great writer. Like, why do you have to be a terrible person too? But like, I mean, at the end of the day, that's every single one of us. I mean, not that we've done the same things he did, but yeah, we are all capable of doing great and wonderful things and loving other people well, but we're also capable of those great sins that we hide. And sometimes they get brought into the light and go, well, is that who you really are? Well, yeah, that's who we really are. We chose to do those things. We chose to give ourselves to them. So if anyone's like disappointed, I know once again, rabbit trail, but I'm fine with this because we can bring it back to the Bible. It's like this is every single person who's ever existed. You don't have to have done the exact same thing he did to be a terrible person. We all know exactly what we've done that other people don't know about, that we've had to confess to him. Just know if it can happen to someone like him, it can happen to us too. So let's get rid of, the log in our own eye first, and then we can start worrying about other people, which once again is the message. Talk about verses taken out of context by other people. I discovered that in Matthew not too long ago.
The log.
Yeah.
The log and judge not and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Get rid of your own business first, then worry about the mote in your neighbor's eye. All right. Anything else on this part before we move forward?
No, I think I've said what I needed to say, and I want to get to this last part because as we have teased throughout this episode, the Bible's funny. And I just find this last part, even though Joshua's going to croak, I find this last part to be fun. So let's get into that.
All right. 29 to 33. After these things, Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in his own inheritance at Timnath Serah. Oh, Brandon and I went through all those proper nouns last couple of days. Oh, it was so bad. Which is in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gash. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua and had known all the work that the Lord did for Israel. As for the bones of Joseph, which the people of Israel brought up from Egypt, they buried them at Shechem in the piece of land that Jacob brought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money. It became an inheritance of the descendants of Joseph. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him at Gibeah, the town of Phinehas his son, which had been given him in the hill country of Ephraim.
So the funny part I was alluding to is, again, the fact that there's just like no moment to breathe. It basically sounds like Joshua's like, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And then he drops dead. Like, that's just funny to me. Again, I know that's not what's going on here. After these things is probably a longer period of time, but it's just like Joshua's like, all right, y'all, don't screw up. And then he drops dead. But I do also really appreciate in this final section, this is another big thing that I preach largely. It comes up a lot of, we have a tendency as Christians, I know this describes both of us here, who have been in church our whole life. We've been up and down school and Vacation Bible School and all the other Awana and the whole bit. It is easy for us to rush to the next. And we did that here in this episode. We talked a lot about, and they're going to mess up royally when we get to the book of Judges. But what actually ends the book of Joshua, and this is important to actually stay within the context sometimes. Yeah, overarching context is important, but sometimes we lose a lot when we actually don't ground ourselves into the moment that we're actually experiencing in scripture. This book actually ends on a positive note. This ends with Israel is following God post Joshua. There is this mention that the rest of the elders, so there was some kind of elder led, you all just can check them. Celebrate an elder-led society. Not what that means, but I'll let you have that one.
Yes.
But you have this, like, Joshua passes away. There's elders who rise up. Israel's still faithfully serving the Lord after that. Aaron's son, is that what it was? Aaron's son?
Yeah, Eleazar.
Eleazar, yeah. The son of Aaron. He dies. Everything's still good. They keep the promise that they made of making sure Joseph's bones are buried in the correct place, just like he wanted all the way back in Genesis. We're talking like generations ago now.
All back.
Yeah. And so again, we know what's going to happen with Judges, so it doesn't last long, but it does end on a note of, oh, Israel actually is doing what they said they were going. And honestly, when you read the Old Testament, it's kind of nice to have the occasional win at the end of a book. It usually kind of is like, oh, that's a bummer. That's not
and
how
then
I
things
thought
got
this
worse.
was going. And then things got worse, or it's a cliffhanger and you have to go to the next one and it's just a bunch of laws. Like, so it is kind of nice to have this moment of like, it again. I think that by this point with Joshua, we are having very historical retelling. Okay. I'm sure if Joshua the Knoll was here, he would have other things. I will await my text message response. The ball is in your court, Knoll. But I do think that it kind of has, for lack of a better word, like a happy ever after kind of vibe to it here at the end. Like, hey, Israel promised, and at least for the immediate generation after Joshua, they continued on. And then it falls apart. But at least here in the moment, it's going to be good.
That is something I have stressed over multiple episodes, not even just here, but like the Pentateuch too. I'm like, look, it is so very easy for us. And yes, you're exactly right. We made the mistake. We like, oh, we know our entire history. And I think we can't help ourselves. Like, as people who studied it, it's like, I know exactly where this is going. And we don't limit ourselves to the moment, which, yeah, it's a good thing to do because, once again, reading things in context. Yeah, I know after this bad things happen. But for right now, let's focus on the good. Like, let's praise them. They did what they were supposed to do. And you know how rare that is to say throughout the historical narrative of the Bible. Like, that's something that should be brought up and said, look, yeah, they screw up. Yeah, they search after other gods. But you know what? They still served God. Yeah. They still got work done. Like, all these things that happen here, Joshua dying, you guys are being succeeded by Phineas, the bones of Joseph being returned, those take faithfulness to do, in that you have to bury your leader, you have to mourn him well, you have to mourn your spiritual leader too, but also there's someone coming up next who's going to be taking care of you people. And like you said earlier, Judges is, out of, goodness gracious, not continuity, chronological order.
Same time. Yeah.
Yeah. That some of those events happen differently. Like the Civil War at the end of the book with Benjamin is going to be Phineas taking lead of Israel at that point in time, even though we've gone through hundreds of years of history before it. That's just how it's written. But to take the bones of someone who's been dead for 400 some years and bring him back as a promise, what is more faithful than that? Someone you've never met.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like your progenitor, as it were, for these two tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. But like, that is such a wonderfully beautiful thing to do that.
It's a nice bit of closure. Like, all these centuries later, all these generations later, Joseph gets closure. Like, the story of Joseph basically ends on a good note for them anyway, other than they're in Egypt. But at that time, Egypt wasn't a bad thing.
Yes.
But all these books later, Joseph gets his closure. He gets to be returned with his family in the burial ground that they have picked out. And it's cool and it's refreshing. And this comes up a lot, this whole like stay in the moment thing. I emphasize this a lot when I'm doing like Christmas sermon, because again, that's another one that, like, thanks to Linus, we can like quote it verbatim, but there is an element of like, no, normally I wouldn't do this, but like, no, you need to put on some blinders and focus right here, right now. This is important where you are at right now. And yes, the wider context does apply, but slow your roll and just stay here for a moment. Like,
yes. Because these are wonderful things. Yes. Once again, we know the context of what's happening next. We've read the book multiple times over. Judges is not going to be a happy, fun time outside of very few moments in between and some comedy bits from Samson. But, at the end of the day, I think did you mention a while back, how could we use him as an example in Sunday school?
Okay, so you're going to Judges next, right?
Yes.
I do not understand why we teach children about Samson, other than he's the closest thing the Bible has to like a superhero because of the strength element. Because otherwise, he's a horrible person that we should not be teaching children about. I was going to pitch myself for a different story, a different chapter for Judges, but let me know if you want me on for Samson.
You are always welcome. We do neuter that version. Sorry to get ahead of things. But yes, I agree with your assessment. Is like, look, there's that comic booky part of he's super strong, he's got the long hair and all this mess. And he gets with the wrong people every now and then. But you know what? I got at the very end, he got it right, which he did get it right. Don't get me wrong. But let me look at before and then after. The actual point where he was actually faithful is a very short amount of his life.
Yes. This came up. I was trying to run it down. This came up on Kung Fu Pizza Party when I reviewed a blaxploitation film called Black Samson, which does an amazing job of doing like an urban a light urban retelling of the story of Samson and makes him a better person.
All right. So now that that context has been removed, is there anything else you want to say about the ending of the book of Joshua before we end for the day?
No, I think we have done it well. Where are we at here? An hour, almost hour 20 ish.
Oh.
So with Joshua Knoll present, what would have that had taken? 2 hours, maybe. Add another at least 40.
2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, we're talking
well.
2 chapters of scripture here. So like either way, it was going to be more.
Yeah. And I do want to say, I forgot to say this earlier too, because my memory is terrible and I forget to write things down because I forget things. It's an endless cycle. Last episode, when I was severely sick with allergies, Joshua made that episode 1,000 times better than it was during recording with the editing that he did. You would say, Christian, but there's still coughing in there. Well, guess what he took out? A lot more of sniffling and dying and wheezing. That man put in work, and I am very grateful for it. I will make fun of him all day long. I will say terrible things about him, but I also want to uplift him because he's my friend, and that's why I do both to him. Thank you for all your hard work, Joshua. And I hope you get better, man.
Josh.
Because I don't know how to edit. If this were up to me, those would have all stayed in.
I choose not to edit, which is not a good way to plug my shows, which is where we should end this episode.
Yes. All right. So, Brandon, speaking of, where can the good people find you?
So if you like rabbit trails, you should definitely check out My Seminary Life, this show where I talk about the things that I am currently studying. And that's not from like an education standpoint as much as it is sermon prep and documentaries and podcasts that I'm listening to. And occasionally I do these episodes called Rabbit Trail, where I talk about something that I couldn't make fit into my sermon, but I still think it's pretty important. So you people get. I also am the host of Kung Fu Pizza Party, where I promise to deliver high-flying action in 30 minutes or less and serve up some wisdom one slice at a time. That is usually in the form of reviewing martial art, media, Kung Fu, ninja, samurai flicks. Today, as Christian and I are recording this, by this point, latest episode on a Mulan film called Mulan Legend has just come out. Part of International Women's Day, talking about one of the, if not the most beloved Chinese folklore hero with Mulan, Hua Mulan. And it's an interesting one. Christian, have you heard of that one? Mulan Legend?
The newest one that's released? No.
It's from 2020.
Okay. No. I know Disney remade it and it was awful, but that's its own thing.
Well, here's the good news.
I'm guessing it's a different company.
This one's only slightly better.
Oh, boy. Something to look forward to today when I get to listen to that.
Yes. And if you have Peacock, you can actually go watch it. I don't know if you have it, but it is on Peacock. Okay. So anyway, that's me. Check out my stuff all here on Amazon.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Brenda, for your time again. Once again, you want to go for anything through judges, you let me know later on. You don't have to say it on the air because once again, we shouldn't promise things.
No.
That's bad. And I do it every time. Thank you to Joshua Knoll for everything that he does here. Please, you guys get a chance to leave a 5-star review in your podcasting platform of choice. Help us with the ratings there to help us find more people. Feel free to share the show with your friends and family members. If you're interested in my own fiction writing, you can find my works at starvingwritersguild.com or on Amazon by searching for the name MC Ashley. If you're interested in some further solid studies into the Bible and its teachings, then check out the other members of the Anazal Ministries podcasting network. You can find me specifically on systematic ecology, Why I Don't Like, Friday Night Frights, Spidey Swing Bys, and some joyful noises. There are more. It feels like it's added every month. Contact me at letnothingmoviepodcast@gmail.com. I'd like to extend once again a special thank you to Joshua Knoll for the editing that he does and for the music he adds to the podcast. And with all that in mind, God bless you all in accordance to his will and not mine. Allow me one more time to remind you, let nothing move you